Marriage with the fetching Mrs. Hewitt. I could not have a better guest than former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, because he knows my lovely wife and he knows that she's just as wonderful as his is. Good morning, Mr. Secretary.
Good morning and happy anniversaries to you.
Thank you. I wanted to talk to you especially, and thank you for getting the time this morning, because of the assassination of former Prime Minister Abe and then the elections that followed and what it means. First, tell us about the Prime Minister. One of the shocking events. I've been off for 5 days. It doesn't happen in Japan.
It's really something. I was heartbroken to see it. Obviously, we pray for him and for his family and the people of Japan who lost an amazing leader and a partner to America. Hugh, he was someone who, when I interacted with him, I've known him since 2015, since he spoke to the joint session of Congress. I got a chance to meet him as a backbench member of Congress from Kansas, and I got to know him as CIA director and Secretary of State. He was always honest with us, straightforward, quiet in his voice, but very, very sincere and direct in how he thought about the world, the threat from the Chinese Communist Party, and making sure he protected the people of Japan, too. He knew that the understandings from the post-World War II era were dated. He was aiming to fix it, and he wanted America's partner to help do that.
He was very clear-eyed about President Xi and the CCP, and the election yesterday gave his party the 75% supermajority it needs to amend the Constitution. Will you welcome that? Because it will allow Japan to rearm after 75 years of being a quasi-pacifist state.
Yes, this would be a good thing for the people of Japan, for the people of the Western Pacific, the folks that Abe understood needed to change the way they thought about their own security environment. And if they do that, then America will be a great partner in assisting them. That we will be able to establish the deterrence that Abe wanted. He wanted to deter the Chinese Communist Party. He didn't want to fight them. He didn't want war. He wanted to establish a set of understandings that were based on the rule of law, protected the things that belonged to Japan, and then help other nations in the region do the same for themselves. It would be a good thing if they amended that Constitution. It'll obviously be up to the leadership there. But to have the capacity to deter aggression is something every sovereign nation is required to have.
Now, Mr. Secretary, you spent some time in the United Kingdom in the run-up to the announcement by Prime Minister Johnson that he will be standing down, and the launch of the UK leadership election. Now, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom matters a great deal to the United States. And you've known a lot of their foreign secretaries, your counterpart when you were at the CIA at M6. You know a lot of these people. What do you make of the needs of Great Britain in their next Prime Minister?
Toughness, resolve, candor, most of all candor to the people of the United Kingdom, telling them that this is a tough, ornery world out there, that they are an important player, and now that they are no longer part of Europe, they need to step up and continue the kind of leadership that they had when President Reagan and Margaret Thatcher and Pope John Paul II worked so closely together. I was there. Hugh, I was in London for 3 or 4 days just before Prime Minister Johnson stepped down, and I saw a great generation of next conservative leaders from the Tory party. Not every Tory is a conservative, but every conservative is a Tory. And I think they will find a good leader who moves the country forward in a way that engages in the world economically. It lets London continue to be a massively important financial center, but provides a level of understanding for other European nations about this is the way forward.
Mr. Secretary, I know you dealt with Boris Johnson and with Theresa May and with many secretaries of defense and ministers of defense. I was hoping Ben Wallace would throw his hat into the ring, and he has declined to do so. What is the clarity that the United Kingdom needs vis-a-vis Ukraine especially? Boris Johnson embodied a lot of physical courage by visiting Ukraine. What do we need the next UK Prime Minister to do vis-a-vis Ukraine? They're all running on tax cuts, but I want to see what they're going to do about their nuclear subs and the Ukraine.
Well, every leader runs on building a good economy so families have the things that they need. Frankly, one of the failures of European leadership over the last decade has been to get sucked into this green idea that said you can rely on Russian energy as your transition, and it put them all in a really, really tough place. Good news, United Kingdom least amongst them. They're not in as bad a place as France and Germany. The next UK leader needs to understand that. It doesn't surprise me they're all running. I'm glad to see they're running on tax cuts since Boris had passed the windfall profits tax, which is a fundamentally unconservative idea. As for Ukraine, they are going to have to continue what Boris spoke about, but didn't deliver on in the way that he needed to. In the same way President Biden spoke about it but hasn't delivered. We need to support the Ukrainian effort to protect their sovereignty, to push back and actually push Putin in a place that forces him to get out of this thing on terms that are good for the Ukrainian people and bad for Vladimir Putin. I hope that next leader will do it. Some of them have. Liz Truss has. Tom Tugendhat has. There's a handful. I don't want to skip any names, but there are a handful of Tory leaders who are putting themselves in the ring. It is unfortunate about their defense minister. He is a fantastic guy and understands Ukraine in ways that maybe no other UK leader has demonstrated. I hope that whoever moves forward, whoever the Tories select, and whoever the people of the United Kingdom select as their next prime minister understands that Ukraine matters to the people of the United Kingdom.
Yeah, Mr. Secretary, in the last 2016 Republican primary, I would ask every would-be Republican nominee about the triad and what was the most important part. In Great Britain, they've decided they need to update their nuclear boomers, their submarines that carry nuclear weapons. Do you think that has to be done? I mean, do you expect the conservatives will stand by that? Because they've been cutting their defense budget even though they talk a good game.
It's not about talk, Hugh. This is the point that I was trying to make just a bit ago. It's about what do you actually deliver for the security of your own people. And for the United Kingdom, updating that fleet, the boomer fleet, their nuclear submarine fleet, is essential. They've allowed their capacity there to deteriorate over the last, 25 years. It is time. No shortcuts, no interim steps. Deliver on that. It is a long run to get there. The Australians the same way. Each of us needs to make sure that our nuclear capabilities, and for the United States, by the way, we've got a ground-based system that the Democrats are talking about getting rid of that will matter a lot to the American people in the decade ahead. We have to continue to invest in those resources that will continue the nuclear deterrence that has served us all so well. For the United Kingdom, that means their subfleet.
Now, Mr. Secretary, staying on that, the Russian losses were reported over the weekend to have reached 25,000 KIA, not casualties, which normally conflates killed and wounded together, but killed in action, 25,000. That is such a stunning number for a 5-month engagement. That can Vladimir Putin keep that up?
Sadly, politically, I think he can. Query whether the military will be able to continue to deliver fresh people to the front lines in a way that will actually continue to push the fight. But this really gets to the core point. I've seen that number, 25,000 killed in action. I've seen casualty numbers, which includes wounded, that are triple that. Obviously, closely kept secret. But it's big numbers. Query whether the West will continue to have the resolve to inflict those kinds of costs on the Russian military that will ultimately lead to Vladimir Putin turning tail. I hear talk from some former American leaders and current American leaders that say we have to have an off-ramp for this. The only way to deliver that outcome, the only way to get to what everybody wants, we want this conflict to end. The only way to get to that conflict to end, to actually be done, not for tomorrow and next week, not a stand-down, not a temporary ceasefire. The only way to get Vladimir Putin to fundamentally give up his quest is deterrence, and that means imposing real costs and creating the perception in his head that the costs will exceed the benefits. We're not remotely close to that, and the loss of 25,000 Russian military lives is not sufficient to convince Vladimir Putin that this endeavor doesn't continue to be worthy.
Mr. Secretary, last night I was out to dinner with my brother-in-law, a former Marine artillery officer, and I mispronounced the name of the Hiram system or Hiram or whatever it is. But they're very effective. They blew up all of the ammo that Russia had gotten into the Donbass, warehouse after warehouse, so that there is a famine of ammo, according to some of the British reports on what happened. Why did it take us so long to get them that particular system, and ought we to send them more? The Ukrainians, I mean.
Yes, we should quadruple down into that. And can I add unarmed aerial vehicles with precision-guided capabilities to provide the intelligence for precision targeting that is just as was described? We should be flooding the zone with that, not just us. The Europeans have these capabilities as well. We should be making sure that the Ukrainians have the capacity to use this precision targeting and precision intelligence in ways that will actually go after the strategic targets that you're describing. I don't know why we waited so long. It sounded like President Biden continued to shout escalation every time someone would offer up a high-end capability. The Ukrainians haven't asked for a single American soldier. They've just asked for the tools to wage war against an aggressor. We should have provided them months ago. We should provide them now, and not just 3 or 4 or 5, but the dozens that they need to actually deliver something that feels like defeat for Vladimir Putin, which will cause him to fundamentally change the way he thinks about aggression in Europe. This isn't over, Hugh. The American people and people around the world sometimes think I should just not on CNN every hour. Vladimir Putin's intentions have not yet changed, and the world's requirement is to make sure that we provide Ukraine the tools they need to change Vladimir Putin's perception of risk.
Last question, Mr. Secretary. I know you've been on the road with CavPac.com supporting Republicans across the United States. The midterms are 4 months away. When you do that, when you go out and you talk for Adam Laxalt in Nevada, or you go stand with Herschel Walker in Georgia, or you'll be up there with Dr. Oz in Pennsylvania, wherever you go, you got a huge crowd. Does anyone care about the national security, or is it all just gas and food prices? Because I know the latter are driving daily kitchen table conversations, but we have to keep the country safe, and this administration is not doing that. Does that come up in your appearances?
Yeah, they're so deeply connected, Hugh. It absolutely comes up. Folks understand that when we lose what we had for 4 years, American energy dominance, the ability to deliver affordable energy to ourselves, that has national security implications and implications for the ability to afford to drive your kids to their soccer game or to their ballet recital. No, the American people get it. They understand the place. They understand the Chinese Communist Party isn't just a foreign problem, that they're inside the gates here, right, showing up at PT meetings and school board meetings and infiltrating our university systems. Those are things that impact their lives every day, too. And sometimes we talk about them as if these are these two separate things, right, foreign policy and the ability to feed your family and pay your rent and afford the energy for your car. They are deeply connected. The American people get it, and they know that President Biden has not delivered on either front.
Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, my best to you. Thank you for joining me on the anniversary show.
Happy anniversary to you. So long, my friend.
Thank you. It's always great when you get headliners like Mike Pompeo. CavPac.com, America. CavPac.com. If you want to support him traveling around the country and supporting candidates who are serious about national security and about Reaganite approaches to the economy, go to CavPac.com.